Hi everyone, recently we managed to create a user by registering them, and then we also did some error check. Now the only error check that I leave to you is to check whether whether the user is registered, so that it draws back the information to the user. Alright, so with that being the case, today we're going to log in, and then in the next video we shall be logging in. We shall be checking if we are logged in or not. Now this part of the series of Auth may take us 2 to 3 videos, or up to 4 videos, because I want to make sure that at least we go through the first basics login checks, because logging in and maintaining a user also within the browser, that's a different case. Now there are several videos about the Vue Auth, especially those who are using the API. Okay, so you better go through and understand the Vue Auth better. There are people who are using the JWT and JWT token. However, me, I'll be using the browser sessions because they are essentially provided by the Laravel Auth. All right, let's go ahead. Now, I want to thank everyone who has subscribed. By the creation of this video, we have 703 subscribers. Please continue subscribing, sharing, and liking these videos. Let's go ahead to the login page. All right, so the login page expects an image here, and I'm creating offline, but we're taking in the business ID, the work ID, and the password. So which means at this moment, when we go to our tables, we expect to have the company table, okay, and then another for the workers table, and then under the workers table, each worker could have a password. Now, it's up to you at this moment to determine if you want the workers to log in with emails or IDs. So which means you can create a field where the worker's email is added and the worker's ID. All right. So this, the reason I'm advocating for a workers table is you want to maintain that the users are the owners of the different companies. So if someone is on as a user, you know, it is owners of the different companies corresponding to the company's company IDs or company foreign keys attached to them. All right, so let's go ahead and create those two tables. All right, so I guess if you don't have them in your API, you better create them, or else with Laravel it's easy. All right, so let's go ahead and create those two tables, and then we resume with the requirements and the foreign keys of the two tables. All right, I've gone ahead and added a field called keyword, and this will take in a keyword that will help us to determine which table that we're going to look into. Now, I went ahead also in the back end in my database of my API, I created 4 other tables. One is companies. Now, a company must belong to a user. Which user is going to be the admin of that business, okay? Or the owner of the business, the one who invests the capital. And then there must be a company manager. The company manager belongs to a company, and the company manager can create a stall, as well as the user can create a stall. And then the workers must belong to a stall, okay? So these workers are the ones that operate a stall, and they will be feeding in the information that the company manager and the user will be watching. So which means the user is the top man on our hierarchy. All right, so let's go ahead and create this information. So the first thing we're going to do in our login page, by the way, the first thing I did, I went to router.js and changed from login to user login so that it does not crash or clash with our login page, the one that we have by default in Laravel. Which login page am I talking about? It's this one. So if I just stroke login and I press enter, okay, we have the Laravel Auth login page. All right, so let's go ahead. I'll show you the solution to that and create now the models, the V model for that. All right, so we're going to come here and then we create a V model. So it's going to be called login credentials. So login creds. maybe, and it will be an array of data. Which array of data will contain the first thing that we have is the keyword. So it will have a keyword which will be empty, and then you add a comma. So we're going to be adding other fields. So the other field is the business ID. Business ID. The other field is the worker ID. I've pressed a copy there. Worker ID, and then lastly, the password. So worker ID, and then lastly, the password. Great. So we're going to go ahead and create another variable for our error checks. So which will be errors. All right. It's going to be an array, and it will be an empty array. All right. So if you don't know how to create errors, watch the registration video. You can see the link up there. Okay. So the link is also down in the description. So we're going to go ahead and create our methods. So in our methods, we're going to have one method. Okay, I like to do comments here in capital letters so that I get to know that this is the methods. So it's easy for me to read. So we're going to create one method that is going to be called submit login credentials. So submit login credentials. And the first thing we shall do is the error check. So this dot errors. So this dot errors will equal to an empty array that I'm going to append to. All right, I'm just putting a comma there. It's supposed to be a termination. So we're going to do a check. We already did it, so I'm just going to go through and make all checks. All right, so we're going to check if we don't have any errors, and then we proceed and do our dispatch. So we're going to do if, remember it's this dot errors, so if not this dot errors, okay, dot length. So we want to see how many errors. So if not the number of errors, then do this. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a constant. And let me call this constant collect login credentials. It's such a long name, which is equal to whatever is in here. So the first will be keyw or keyword. So it will take in this dot login credentials dot keyword. And then the other will be business ID. So business, I want to put an underscore there, so it's different. So business underscore ID, which will take in this dot login credentials dot business ID. Then the other will be worker ID. So worker ID, I want to add an underscore there. So which will take in this dot login credentials dot worker ID. And then lastly the password PW. All right, so which will take in this dot login credentials dot password. Great, so we want to continue. So we've collected all that constant and we want to take it to the dispatch. So it will be, okay, this dot dollar store, okay, dot dollar store dot dispatch. So it's store dot dispatch. And then what are we dispatching? So the action can be get login credentials and then the payload will be this here, collect login credentials. Great, so I still have it copied, and I'm going to go to my storage. All right, I like creating comments here, so this will be the login credentials. Let it be get login credentials. All right, so I'm taking in the dispatch, which is get login credentials. Which will have a state and our payload. So the payload is that. Great, so I want to first console.log whatever comes in with the payload. So I'll do a console.log whatever comes in with the payload. So it will be that dot maybe keyword. All right, so I need to come back to my login.vue and make sure that the form submits. Okay, the form will submit at submit.prevent. So at submit.prevent, okay, what are we submitting to? We're submitting to this down here, which is called submit login credentials. At submit to login credentials. All right, so we also need to create a V model for our credentials. So we're going to have a V model which is taking in login creds dot, the first one is a keyword. All right, so I'm just going to copy and just add others. So the other will be the business ID. This other one, the other will be the worker ID, and then lastly the password. Great, let's go ahead and test and we see if we get anything. All right, so if you do change anything in the storage, it will always first try and reload whenever you save. All right, so I'm going to try and inspect. So one thing I've added is credentials here so that I'll be able to check my errors. So if I click, I should be able to check my errors. All right, so let me see. All right, so I do know why we're not seeing that. Is a very good check. It's because the button type is not a submit. So I need to come to the button and I make sure that the type of button is a submit button. So if I press again, I can see that I do not have the worker ID and the password. So I'm going to provide that this is the admin, and then this is the business ID, which can be biz ID, and then this is the worker ID, which can be, okay, this one expects an email, so which will be wmail.com, and then the password can be 1234, and if I press to log in, I expect to see something in the console.log here. So is the console, okay, it says undefined, so let's check why it says undefined. Okay, all right, the reason it's saying undefined is because I said keyword here instead of key W. So when I save, of course, we'll have to refresh again. Great. So this time around, okay, the drop down, and I choose to go to the login. So this will be admin, this will be biz1, and then this will be w.w@ at wmail.com, and then the password is 1234. Great. So we can see that our keyword is admin, which means down here we are receiving everything. All right. So let's meet in the next video where we're going to now send what we receive in the storage. I don't want to make this a long video, so that we send what we receive in the storage. All right, let's do that.